Access Credit Union has always been at the heart of our community through good and bad times. We want to continue to play our part in helping our community through the COVID-19 crisis. As businesses reopen, we encourage our community to work together by staying local, borrowing locally, and spending locally. Access Credit Union is here to help.
Close your eyes and pull like a dog.
And a new Irish record for Phil Healy, 22.99.
Christy Cooney hands over the Sam Maguire Cup to Ger McCarthy, Cork All-Ireland champions for the 7th time ever.
Hello and welcome to the Star Sport Podcast. My name is Jack McCarron of the Southern Star, and I'm joined on this week's show by freelance sports journalist Ger McCarthy, whose work you'll find in the Southern Star, the Echo, the Irish Examiner and the Big Red Bench on Red FM. Before we kick things off this week, I'd just like to give a gentle reminder to our listeners and viewers to please rate, review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify and YouTube. The more ratings, reviews and subscribers we get, the more we can continue to grow the podcast. Now, on with the show. On today's podcast, we'll be joined by Castlehaven captain Mark Collins, following on from their nail-biting penalty shootout win in the Premier Senior Football Championship on Sunday. The Haven were set to meet Nemo Rangers in the county final this weekend, but because of the new COVID restrictions announced on Monday night and the GAA's postponement of all club action for the foreseeable future, no date has yet been set for the final. We'll also chat to Kilmacabea's Ruairi Hourihane. Kilmacbea were crowned Carbery Junior A football champions for the third time in 4 years on Sunday, with a comfortable 14-point win over Carbery Rangers at Ardfield, and man of the match Ruairi Hourihane spoke to Ger following another divisional success for the club. But Ger, unfortunately, we're going to have to kick things off with the news that GAA club action has once again been halted because of the COVID pandemic. Watching the Castlehaven game on Sunday evening, I was really looking forward to chatting to you today to preview Sunday's county final, but on Sunday evening news was spreading that another lockdown was imminent, and then on Monday morning the announcement came from the GAA that all club action was to cease immediately. A statement from the GAA said that the decision has been taken in the interest of public safety following a number of incidents that have been brought to our attention in recent days. It went on to cite a lack of social distancing as well as post-match celebrations as reasons for the stoppage. Ger, what was your initial reaction to the GAA's announcement on Monday morning?
Honestly, Jack, it was one of surprise. I mean, like you and like every other sports fan, I figured this was around the corner. But there seemed to have been a real push, not just in men's but in ladies football as well, and in Camogie in recent weeks, to try and get as many club and provincial games completed as possible. So people knew they were up against the clock. The timing of the statement makes complete sense in the current situation. The timing caught me a little off guard. I don't know, I presume you saw like Blackrock, the Rockies won the Cork Senior Hurling on Sunday, and then they had somebody filmed that kind of mini parade that they had and everybody milling around the place. And I just think there was a kind of a very quick knee-jerk reaction from the GAA following that, and that got so much attention on social media. To be fair to the Rockies, they weren't the only club celebrating. There was matches up in Derry and Balahi. I saw footage of that on Twitter. Far too many people at that game. Far too many people not social distancing. So I think the GAA were probably waiting to go as far as they could when they felt it was safe to do so. But they really didn't have much of a choice on Monday. And they felt that the right thing to do was to, across the board, remove all club activity in the interest of safety. When it comes to the interest of safety, you can't really argue. But it was, I suppose, a lot of people were kind of caught a little bit on the hop because the government and the HSD still hadn't fallen out at that stage, or the NFED still hadn't fallen out at that stage. So yeah, the timing it caught me by surprise, but not the content. And I fully agree. I mean, right now I can see it on the ground with kids and everything. It's disappointing, but it is the right thing to do right now where we're headed. Yeah,
obviously you mentioned that video that circulated on a Saturday or Sunday evening of the Black Rock parade that obviously went viral and caused outrage, and clearly the optics weren't great. But I guess from our point of view, the disappointing thing for the game we're going to talk about in a few minutes, like the Castlehaven county final, would still fall under the elite sport. So officially it can still go ahead, but the GAA have made their decision. And obviously there aren't many county finals left to play in the country, but the one that we care about most, the Castlehaven county final, is off, which is hugely disappointing, especially bearing in mind how good a game they had on Sunday evening.
Absolutely, that's the killer for fans and for neutrals like ourselves. That even in West Cork, we'd have had a huge interest to build up on the Southern Star. Everything would have been class, and the fact that the Haven were going up against a nemesis in Nemo, who scraped past Duhallow and were pushed to the pin of their collar in that semi-final as well. But you're right, that semi-final between the Bars and the Haven, I mean, going to penalties, as Mark Collins will talk about in the Southern Star interview coming up there shortly. Rarely, I think, have I seen such an intense game. And I think what added to it really was watching online on the Examiner's website. What added to it were the weather conditions were so bad. It kind of was a bit of a leveler, and it came down to pure heart. It came down to desire. It came down to skill, obviously, with Brian Hurley's freeze we'll talk about. But, you know, winning a penalty shootout, an epic penalty shootout, the euphoria, the endorphins that you get from that, you're on an unbelievable high. You're into a county final. They're first in 7 years as well for Castlehaven, very important for them. They haven't won a county final in 7 years, so it was very important. They wanted a real crack off of it this year. And then the deflation of the announcement that it's not going ahead, and worse still, Jack, not knowing when it's going ahead, probably is an even bigger downer. But what can you do? The GA have made their decision. But yeah, of all weeks and of all finals, two of the best and most consistent teams in senior football in Cork for many years, going head to head would have been fantastic. And unfortunately, look, it will happen, and we'll enjoy it when it does come around. But not knowing when it's going to happen is upsetting for everybody, especially for the two clubs, but also for neutrals.
It is, and I don't think it's an over-exaggeration or cheesy to say that, like, the return of club action has lifted the spirits of the nation. Like, I know for me personally, just being back playing hurling and having the ability to go and watch the odd game of football here or there just makes your week so much better. So it's hugely disappointing, but let's just park that for the minute, because there's nothing that can be said that's going to change the current situation. The game won't go ahead this Sunday. Hopefully it will go ahead at some stage in 2020. But you mentioned the conditions on Sunday night, and it was tough. It was almost storm-like by the end of the penalty shootout. But, as you said, the great leveller, and also it just enhances the skill levels that were on show because they were managing to do it in those conditions. And I just want to mention that I was also watching this game via the live stream, but I was also following closely on Twitter, and I have to say I got a great kick out of your reaction to Brian Hurley's wonder point late in the game. So maybe for people who actually didn't get a chance to see it, could you maybe describe Brian Hurley's point, because it was one of the great Gaelic football points, wasn't it?
I think the best reference point I can give it, and sorry, I should just apologise again, as I apologised on Twitter afterwards because I swore on Twitter, which I rarely do, but it was just such a epic moment,
occasion warranted
a big game.
The occasion warranted it.
Brian Hurley, Castlehaven win a sideline, a line ball on the right-hand sideline. Brian Hurley trots over. He's looking to either play it short or he was looking for somebody, but I know Brian Hurley and a lot of people in West Cork, and you've probably seen enough of him now to know as well, Jack. This guy is just oozing class. And from the sideline, in the wind, in the rain, at an absolutely vital moment in such a tight semi-final, he elected to kick from the sideline outside of his right boot and not just curl it barely over, but right over the bar. What added to it was the commentary, which went a bit. Like Brian Cuthbert was in the commentary booth, Derek Kavanagh, former Nemo Rangers. They were all just shouting and roaring because it was just a wonderful moment. It's the kind of moment a kid will go out on the pitch and try and replicate over and over again. And the easiest reference point I can give it for anyone who remembers Maurice Fitzgerald for Kerry against Dublin. I think it was either in Limerick. It was in a neutral venue outside of Dublin anyway. I'll always remember Tommy Carr, the manager, shouting in his ear on the sideline. Fitzgerald just taps it outside of the boot over the bar. Fitzgerald and Hurley should be mentioned in the same breath because they are mavericks. They are rare commodities in a senior inter-county football that is so, there's a lot of good stars, but there's rare kind of gems like these guys who can do things off the cuff. Players in ladies football like Darren O'Sullivan, Darren O'Sullivan, from Mourne who does these kind of things, or the Finn for Kinsale as well, who can just do something when you least expect it. Hurley, at that moment, so important to nail it over the bar. Absolutely brilliant moment. Moment of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was brilliant that it was captured by the live stream so everyone could see it. It's not just one of those mythical moments that happened in a club game somewhere up the country. Now we're going to chat to Castlehaven's captain Mark Collins in just a moment, and he was obviously the hero at the end of the game because he kicked the winning penalty in the most unusual circumstances for a county semi-final, a penalty shootout. And obviously you cover all sports for the Southern Star, but one of the sports you cover primarily is soccer, so you have a great eye for soccer, and I wanted to get your thoughts on the quality of penalties that were taken by both sides, because obviously it's not something that they'll be used to. I did see mentioned somewhere, maybe it was in the interview with Mark coming up that I have listened to already, but that Castlehaven had done some penalty shootout practice in the lead up to the game. But what was your own take on the penalty shootout, considering it's not something that we've really seen at this stage of a championship?
Yeah, that's a very good point. We've never seen it at this stage of a championship, let alone in a semi-final, let alone amid monsoon conditions. And in the interview, I kind of half jokingly said it, but I had intended to mention it to Mark in the interview, because I know who's behind the scenes in that Castlehaven team. I see the preparation. I see the attention to detail that they have. They don't reach a final just by chance. And he mentioned the fact, I just jokingly said, did you practice penalties? And he said, well, Bernie Collins is one of the main selectors and trainers. We did kind of mess around, and Mark being Mark, he was being nice about it. I have a feeling that Bernie Collins would have been half joking, but would have had in the back of his head, maybe we should do this. How many senior football teams practice penalty shootouts? How many junior teams do? How many soccer teams do? Jack, I don't know, in West Cork League. But what I was very impressed with was the calmness of Mark Collins' finishes. Two penalties. He got the deciding one as well, and he went two different directions. But in fairness, like for Killian Myers-Murray, who had a fantastic game for the Bars, he hit the crossbar with the penultimate one, and I felt sorry for him because he played so well, and he had dispatched his penalty as well earlier than that. Look, it comes down to a test of nerves. No matter what grade you're at, you know yourself, you've probably been involved in penalty shootouts. It might be an opening round of some innocuous tournament, but it's pressure point, and it's on you basically. It's you versus the goalkeeper, and that's the difference between, I think, Mark Collins and kind of other players of that ilk, because Mark played superbly, but he's got those nerves and he's got that calmness about him in the midst of everything going on, that he knows how to finish and put it away. Very well taken penalties, and some very good saves too by both goalkeepers. Anthony Seymour, who Kieran did a very, very good interview with, and I'd advise people to go check that out on the Southern Star the previous week, is a very important player in that Castlehaven team now. We spoke about that as well. But yeah, considering the occasion, considering the conditions, I mean, the last time I saw a penalty shootout that was anyway kind of in those conditions was Chelsea Man United in the Champions League a few years ago, and I thought of John Terry slipping. I was actually thinking this, who's going to slip? But all the penalties were of a decent quality. One that hit the crossbar from Myers-Murray was unfortunate, but Collins was coolness personified the way he put that one away.
Well, let's hear from the man himself now. The Castlehaven captain, Mark Collins, spoke to Ger a little earlier on.
Okay, delighted to be joined by Cork intercounty footballer and Castlehaven captain Mark Collins for this week's Southern Star Sports podcast. Mark, how are you?
Very good, Ger. Obviously delighted to get the win on Sunday evening. It was crazy circumstances, but we were just delighted to get through and to be looking forward to a county final.
Yeah, before we talk about that, and we could do a whole hour on that, but we won't, that one match with the Bars and how you came through it on penalties. Let's just talk about, first of all, what we've heard in the last 24 hours, which is the GAA cessation of all underage, club, junior, senior football matches, not intercounty matches, but championship matches. Now, as difficult as it is to, it's disappointing to get that information in county final week, just after coming off the high of coming through such an epic game with the Bars. It must be incredibly deflating for you and for your teammates now to realise that there's no county final at the end of the week.
Yeah, I suppose it's a very strange situation. 2020 has thrown many crazy situations at us, and this is just another one. Like, after coming off a high of winning a semi-final on Sunday night, there was a great buzz afterwards, and everything yesterday morning was about trying to get the bodies right for next Sunday, and we had recovery organised, and everything was gung ho for Sunday, but there was a spanner thrown in the works, and I suppose we just have to deal with that now. God only knows when we're going to end up playing the county final. But it's just trying to keep the heads right and probably the bodies right, and be ready when the day eventually comes.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, not just for yourselves, but for the backroom team. I mean, it's a case of, right, everybody just has to keep at a particular level. It's going to be at least 3 weeks, if not more, anyway, before anything really occurs. If anything, if there is any kind of, we just don't know. And I mean, from the media's point of view, we don't know. But from the player's point of view, and especially from an inter-county player like yourself, not alone do you have to mind yourself from the club, but there's also the build-up now to the whole inter-county season. So that must be, kind of awkward, if not difficult for you. You'll be going full pelt with Cork, I'd imagine, in training and getting ready for the big games that are coming up. But you also have to keep one eye on when that game is going to be played against Nemo.
Yeah, I suppose that you hit the nail on the head there. That's the hard bit. No one knows what's going to happen. Like, even talking to James McCarthy, our manager, this morning, it's just very hard to plan. We really, really just don't know at the moment. And I suppose we have to wait and see. But look, by the looks of it, I'd say we'll probably be back in with Cork this week. We have myself and the two Hurleys with the footballers and the two Callans with the hurlers. So we'll probably just have to knuckle down. It's going to be hard on the club lads at home. It's very disappointing. Looking forward to a county final and then probably losing 5 of your panel from training and stuff. But it's just a situation. We've had many hard situations this year, and it's just another one we have to deal with, I suppose.
On the positive side, how refreshing has it been for you and the players that you mentioned there just to get time as a squad and as a group? I saw you in the group stages and you were flying. It obviously helped being around, I won't say distractions, but not having any inter-county commitments meant you had a clear run of the club championship.
Yeah, it's been absolutely brilliant. Even during the lockdown and everything, it was like with Zoom sessions and everything that went on, we did an awful lot with Castlehaven, and it's been the most we've done in years, and it's been very enjoyable and refreshing. I suppose a lot of them are your best friends and stuff, so it's great to be around them all the time. And to be honest, the crack and the enjoyment has been brilliant the last couple of months.
You weren't getting sick of each other at any one stage in particular? No, I've asked that of every team I've interviewed, not just Dina.
No, we haven't fallen out with each other yet anyway.
I don't doubt that. One of the things actually I wanted to mention to you, let's just go back to a positive. I think it was the Island Rovers game in the group stage. You needed to chase a particular score to get the semi-final bye that day, and you got it. But you were well ahead in the second half, and there was one point where a couple of players started balling each other out over a missed pass or a misplaced kick. And I just thought, okay, right there, that's Castlehaven in a nutshell. You're winning well, you're going to win, but you're chasing a target, and there's no drop in the standards. You've obviously pushed each other unbelievably this year, and it's obviously worked out well because you're still now in a county final.
Yeah, I suppose that's a credit to the management too. They came in at the start of the year and they've set the standards, and we've had to live up to them then. But yeah, it's been very good all year, to be honest with you. Like, and even that day against Island Rovers, we had 4 or 5 subs came on and made a big difference, and that's what you're looking for. You're looking for a panel, and as you said, absolutely delighted to be in a county final and really looking forward to it.
Right, and you're in that county final by virtue of the fact that you beat St. Finbarrs after a 113-113 draw after extra time. It was live on the Examiner Sport website. I mean, the word epic is thrown around every now and again. The word legendary, all these different cliches are often thrown around, Mark. But from a player's point of view, before we even talk about the penalty shootout, it was incredibly intense game. But also, I don't think how bad the conditions were didn't necessarily come across when people were watching it. It was unbelievably bad weather conditions that night.
Yeah, there were tough conditions, all right. I think I had watched the Duhallow and Nemo semi-final earlier on in the day, and the wind was crazy. And the wind might have died a bit, but I think the rain picked up, and conditions were tough. But as you said, it was a crazy game. Like the intensity and the physicality of it was, my body is in bits since, and I know a lot of the lads are the same. There was, like, to be fair to the Barrs, like, they're really, really, they're a physical, strong team, and they really put it up to us, and it could have gone either way. Like, I think we were very lucky in extra time. I think we might have only had 2 or 3 shots and scored the 3 of them, so like we were probably very lucky to end up going to penalties even.
I don't like to pick out individuals, and I know you mightn't. This is where you actually have to praise them a bit, and there'll be a bit of ribbing. But that point from the sideline in the wind and the rain by Brian Hurley at such a critical juncture in such an important game underlines the guy's quality. but I'm going to give you the floor now. You're going to have to praise him and tell him how great he is on this, and then you can tell me what you really think. Okay.
To be fair to him, like he's a special player. Like, you know, both feet, strong, well able to score. But like, it just shows you what he can do. You know, an amazing scorer. Even though I've been telling him since that he didn't mean it and he was trying to lob it in. But no. To be fair to him, like that just sums Brian up. You know, end of the match. Pressure, everything on him, and not a bother to him. You know, like, we're just so lucky to have a player of his talent and ability. Like,
Indeed you are. Let's talk about the penalties, and it's something we're not used to talking about at senior club level, because I'm pretty sure it hasn't happened in a championship at this juncture. But like, am I right in saying you did not prepare for penalties, or did you?
Yeah, no, not particularly.
Right.
We were out.
It was James back, so I'm wondering, like, you know, he probably had a sense of it, you know.
we were out early training one night last week, or a couple of weeks ago, and Bernie Collins, one of the selectors, was just messing with us to take a few, and we were laughing at him, thinking like this wasn't going to happen ever. Like, you know, there was a pure messing job and just trying to keep the spirits high. But you know, it was crazy. Like, never in your wildest dreams would you think that a Cork County semi-final would go to penalties, and for it to actually happen was mad. It was a surreal way to win a match, but it was an amazing feeling afterwards. But like, in saying that, probably a horrible way to lose for the Bars. You know, they ended up not losing a match and being knocked out of the championship, so it's just a crazy situation.
Take me through the thought process of somebody walking up to take a penalty that might put their team into a county final.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest with you, when the five of us came in, you know, the five penalty takers had to come in together, and I just spoke to the lads and I just said, look, whatever happens here, lads, this situation is nuts. You know, just pick your spot and go for it, and no one will ever hold anything against you. Like, no matter what happened, it was going to be a mad situation. So, like, I probably was lucky that the two times I stood up to take the penalty, the Bars man before me missed. So I was under less pressure, whereas I think Ruairi Maguire was taking our fifth penalty. If he missed, we were out. So that was the real pressure one. And like, for a fellow who's only starting for his first year to stick it in the top right corner, like, it took serious nerve and battle. So I thought that was the impressive one.
It would be remiss of me not to mention your goalkeeper either, Anthony Seymour, because not only in the penalty shootout, but throughout the game, and certainly I think in this year's championship, he's a player that's emerged as a very important individual, not just as a goalkeeper, but in your game plan, his distribution from kick out short and long. I'd imagine you were all delighted with his performance as well.
Yeah, like, we were absolutely chuffed for Anthony after the game on Sunday night. Like, he's a fella who's had to wait his time. You know, he's been back up to Paddy Hurley, who's been an incredible servant to Castlehaven over the years. And, you know, Anthony has waited for his chance. And to be fair, like, you know, even the way fellas reacted with him after the match, you knew that people were really delighted for him. And like, he made 2 or 3 incredible saves, and one even in normal time, which probably kept us in the game at the time, was just as important.
And just finally on that, Mark, I wanted to ask you, like, it's been I think it's 2013, unless I'm incorrect, since you last won a county football championship. That's a long stretch for a club of your stature and a club of your quality. Is that something you talk about, or is it something that you just focus on the next game, or is it something to back of your mind and a couple of lads like Damien and a few of the others who would have been there back at that time, and Brian as well? Like, you know as well as better than anyone, these things don't come around, county finals don't come around, and you have to grab your opportunity when it arrives. But is it something that has fueled you this year? You just determination to get back to a county final and win one, or is it just a case of game by game?
Yeah, I suppose it's not something we ever talk about or anything. I remember when I first came on the scene in 2008, 2009 with Castlehaven, the older lads were talking about, they won a county against Clon in 2003, and a lot of them were young that time, and they thought every year they were going to be in a county final, and it wasn't until 2011 again Castlehaven weren't in a county final. So I remember them honing that into us, that these don't come around that easy. And I suppose it's a very competitive championship, and to try get to a final isn't easy. So like, you have to take your chances when they come. And as you said, like, since 2013 is a long time. So with the, like, when we won in 2013, probably a lot of our main players would have been still quite young at the time. So like, it's probably time that we are back in a final, and hopefully we can get the job done now.
Yeah, look, whenever that is played, we'll be focusing a lot closer on that game and on your opponent. We won't do that today because you've just come through such an epic semi-final, but Nemo and yourselves should be an absolute classic. Let's talk about Cork and Intercounty, because that's coming in on very quickly onto the horizon. Let's assume it's all going ahead. Let's assume that there won't be any more setbacks. Cork, it must be very, very difficult for an Intercounty player in that you're going to be playing to pretty much an empty stadium. I know that doesn't count once the ball is thrown in, but that the atmosphere around like the Cork and the Kerry encounter and things like that, that's going to be missing this year. But might that play into your advantage, into Cork's advantage, in that, it's an open, it's a free shot. It's not a lot of people outside your camp are giving you are that positive around you, and that's not being smart. I think that's just the reality of it. But is this not an opportunity in such different times for Cork to actually put down a marker and make a statement?
Yeah, again, it's a very strange situation. I know the lads have been back a couple of weeks, and they had small numbers for training the first couple of weeks. But any reports coming out of the camp is that training has been super, and the energy and fellas are mad for road. So that's great to hear. And I suppose the league as well at the start of the year, like there was a lot of positive signs for Cork. So there's a lot of good young players coming, and kind of really looking forward to getting back into it now, and just having one right cut off it. Absolutely nothing to lose. It's as we said a number of times, it's been a mad year. So as I said, absolutely nothing to lose, and have a right go off it now when we get back in there.
And just in terms of your own fitness, I know you're coming off like that epic game and you're probably still quite tired and the body is probably sore, but no injury concerns heading into it for yourself?
No, I've been very lucky, to be honest with you, Ger, 100%. So kind of looking forward to getting back into training with them now.
Well, Mark, the very best of luck, and congratulations on reaching a county final that we don't know when it's happening, but it is happening. I suppose that's the most important thing, and when it does come around, the Southern Star will be there to write about it and talk about it. Until then, thanks very, very much for your time.
Thanks a million, Ger. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Great stuff there from Mark, and congratulations to everyone involved with the Castlehaven footballers. Now, before we chat to Ruairi Hourihane, I just want to pause for a minute to chat to our friends at Access Credit Union.
The Star Sport Podcast is, of course, brought to you by Access Credit Union, your trusted local financial partner. Just recently, I went through the process of opening a current account with Access Credit Union, and I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that it's changed my life. I was able to open the account online during lockdown, which made the process completely hassle-free, and it was made even easier by the great support provided by Access Credit Union team leader Amanda O'Sullivan, who joins me now. Amanda, I understand you can now apply for a credit union loan online as well.
Thanks, Jack. Yeah, you can. If you thought applying for your current account was easy, you'll be delighted when you come to us for your car loan. You can apply online just as long as you're registered for your online banking. A couple of clicks and it comes to us here in Access Credit Union. The personal touch still isn't lost. We'll still bring you back and discuss the loan with you. And you can upload any supporting documents you needed, your payslips, bank statements, that sort of thing. We attach them here to your loan, assess the loan, and you can draw it down online. So we aim to do that all within 24 to 48 hours, depending on when you submit your documents. And I suppose it was something that was in the pipeline for a while, but with COVID-19, it sped us up to provide the service. And it's really worked out well for us. And for members being able to access their funds and still draw down their loan, it's been a great asset to us really, and to the community. I suppose, typically people always had to come into the credit union to draw down their loan, and for young people who may not be living in the area anymore, we were inaccessible then. So now we're back in the market for these members again, and hopefully they will support us as we are supporting local businesses. And with every €10 spent in the locality, it generates €40 for the local economy. So in turn, the interest that you're paying on your loan in your local credit union goes back into your local economy. So everyone's helping each other with this.
Great stuff. Thanks very much, Amanda. And don't forget, Access Credit Union is your trusted local financial partner. Access your money 24/7 from anywhere in the world with an Access Credit Union current account, and enjoy all the benefits while keeping your money local.
Kilmacbea were crowned Carbery Junior A football champions for the third time in 4 years with a 118-7 points win over Carbery Rangers at Ardfield on Sunday. Having gone 129 years without a title before landing their first in 2017, the Lep Club are almost becoming used to winning at this stage. Sure, this was another huge moment for the Kilmac men.
Absolutely. I mean, like you mentioned there, the 129-year wait. I remember the day they won the first one, and that was just an epic outpouring of emotion. But what they've done and what they haven't done, like other clubs in the past in West Cork, Jack, they haven't lived off it. They've built on it, and that's the key thing with this Kilmacbea backroom team and with their squad. They're not content with just winning one West Cork. They've won 3 of the last 4, as you mentioned. But their goal, as we will hear in the interview coming up with Ruairi Hourihane, is that they want to go one step further. They want to push on. They want to get out of the county and move up a grade. Not an easy thing to do at junior level in Cork, because whatever about the level of quality of football, it is very even when you get to the county. You're meeting a lot of very, very good teams who are just as hungry. It was a tale of two halves in that game the last day. I mean, Ross Carbery's second team haven't really been around the Junior A final of recent years, so they did quite well to get there. But the conditions, I mean, Kilmacbea kicked 118, I think, in the end. Like, they kicked 118 in the end, but they were 12 points to 1 up at half-time. So guess who had to win, basically, is what you'd say there. But even if you've got the elements, you got to use them. And the one thing with this Kilmacbea team, they've always added something each and every year. Like, Damien Gore is the headline guy for people who wouldn't know anything about Kilmacbea, because he's on the Cork setup and he's a very, very exceptionally talented player. But it's that half back line of Hourihane, a guy called Clive Sweetenham, who's been there now for many, many years, one of their most important players, and Donnacha McCarthy bombing up and down the pitch. That half back line of Kilmacbea is a second half forward line. They're that good and they're that fit. They deserve to win the championship this year, but a word for Ross, because getting to the final was an achievement in itself, and I'm not belittling them by saying that, but a second team getting to a final, it can be rare when you're playing the first team of other towns and villages, and they'll be back. But unfortunately for Kilmacbea, just as they get over the line, they win the tournament, they're stopped in their tracks, and they don't know if there's going to be a county or when that's going to be. That's unfortunate, because they were building momentum. They had a really tough game against Cara, the other probably top team in the junior grade in West Cork, the previous week, in very bad conditions. And to have gotten that momentum over those 2 games, I really feel if they played this weekend or even the weekend after, it wouldn't have mattered. They'd have won. They're that good, and they're on a roll. Losing that momentum, not knowing when you're playing and who's going to be around, is going to be a factor when it comes around. But Ruairi Hourihane is an example of somebody who'd been away for many years, watching from afar, is back living in Galway, but is travelling up and down from Galway and training and playing with Kilmacbea. There's the level of dedication for him to win the man of the match, and for him to win his first Junior A West Cork when his dad is so involved and he's been so involved and the family are so involved with Kilmacbea, is a lovely story, and he was very good with his time in the upcoming interview.
Okay, Ger, great stuff. Well, let's throw now to that chat that you had with Rory a little earlier on.
Delighted to be joined by West Cork Junior A champion, and I know he's going to enjoy hearing that title. Ruairi Hourihane, congratulations.
Thanks, Ger. Thanks. Yeah, it was a big day, all right. Yeah, for me, I guess the lads have had a couple of finals. I think a couple of them were playing in their 5th final, if you include the drawing game against Cara. So yeah, it was a big day. Yeah, for me, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, and I should probably have preempted that by saying, obviously, Kilmacbea are the West Cork Junior A football champions for 2020 once again. And as you said, somebody that's come back into the setup and into the fold only last year. This is your first Junior A medal, whereas the majority of the squad that defeated Ross Carbery this past weekend already have a number of medals in their back pockets. Was this something they were reminding you of in the build-up to it, or was it all very?
It was mentioned once or twice for me not to get too excited, but like it was great actually having the experience of the lads beside me, because it was a big game, but they just approached it as another game. It wasn't blown out of all proportions or anything. We would have been heavy favourites going into it, we just like the lads just said, to keep it cool, keep it calm, not to get too excited, and just get the job done effectively. So it was great to have their experience, really. But I guess it was also kind of good to have someone that hadn't experienced it, maybe had something to prove, like myself. I think that I kind of tried a little bit harder, maybe because it was my first final, I guess I tried to channel the excitement that way. So look, it all paid off, and to hear, West Cork champion is pretty special, to be honest.
Indeed, it is, and it's something the Kilmacbea club have gotten quite used to, as you rightly alluded to, over the past couple of years. But your backstory to this, you were working and living in London for many, many years. And whilst you were there and away from all of this, you were keeping in contact, I assume, with the likes of the Southern Star and keeping in contact at home. Not an easy thing when you love football and you see the guys that you grew up with and the team that you're, this is your home team, doing so well. Obviously you're back now, but back then, can you just go back to that time frame? I mean, I don't know what it's like of a Sunday afternoon in London if you're trying to tune into a West Cork Junior A match, how you managed to do that.
Well, I mean, we got to remember that this was pre-COVID, so there would have been no live coverage. There would have been no streaming. The best you could have done was Twitter, and even then, it would be kind of updated maybe every 10 or 15 minutes. So keeping up to date wasn't that easy. And yeah, look, I think I last played a Junior A game in 2010, I think, ahead of this season. So while I was in London for 8 years, it was actually 10 years since I had played a Junior A. And, I was keeping tabs on it, obviously. My father's chairman here, so obviously he was keeping me updated with the ins and outs of it all. I know I was chuffed for the lads because, it was a long road there in kind of the 2000s and mid-2000s when I was playing. We just didn't seem to get a good run at it. There were some very good teams in it there as well. So, when to see the success was brilliant. But yeah, from a personal level, you definitely think, I would have been 29, 30. And I was probably thinking that my chance might never come, to be honest. And I remember when they won the first one against Kilbrittain, being over in London, and yeah, just being so proud of them. But also, yeah, definitely being a small bit jealous and maybe thinking that your chance had kind of not come, I guess, or you've missed your chance. And my father obviously would have been always hoping secretly that I'd come back at some stage, I think.
Were there messages and secret subliminal messages like come home?
Yeah.
Like that, no?
Like, he'd never put pressure on me that way, but I think that he enjoyed yesterday for sure. And I was a bit, I guess, disappointed with my performance against Carr in the semi-final. I felt that, look, I had a job to do, but I felt that I played a little bit within myself. Maybe I was caught a bit cold. It was my first real taste of, toothed and nail action in the Junior A Championship, and I think I was a little bit, deer in the headlights for the first couple of minutes. Maybe I gave away a few balls, so I just really wanted to put that right. I kind of had a chat with myself about what my goals were. 2 or 3 things that you just want to improve on, and that's the mentality that I went out with, and thankfully, it all kind of paid off.
Yeah, it's interesting you put that slant on it because the match report and anybody that watched it, the task that you're talking about was not an easy one. Marking Brian O'Driscoll, one of the finest players in West Cork, if not the county. And it wasn't your natural position either. You're naturally a half forward, I understand. And this was more of a centre back kind of a watching, marking role. I mean, the fact that you're being asked to do that, Ruairi, means that the management had faith in you that you could do it. And obviously the result came out the right end for you and you got to the final. But I wanted to ask you not just about that particular Jack McCarron game and that Carbery game, but just somebody who's come back into it fresh, it being Junior A football in West Cork. Your thoughts on, first of all, the quality and certainly the intensity of it.
Yeah, the like you, I won the Junior 3 last year, so I think that was a really nice segue back into football. I returned back to Ireland in July 2019. So the lads, the Junior A Championship had already been kind of run off. So the Junior C kicked off in September or October last year, and it was a nice kind of segue into it. But definitely our first league game was against Clon this year, Clon's Junior A's, and yeah, the pace was, I mean, it was a league game, first of the year, and the pace really was pretty high, to be honest. So yeah, it did take a small bit of getting used to, and we only had 2 league games before COVID stopped everything. So actually, I think that COVID was a bit of a leveler for me, I guess, because everyone then came back in June, July, rusty as hell, So just like myself, so I think that it kind of leveled the playing field a small bit for me. And I would have been running a lot. everyone was doing their 5Ks or whatever. Every footballer in the country during those couple of months. But yeah, I mean, the pace and everything was a huge step up. And then you go into championship, and we played Bandon in the first round, and we won that game pretty well. But there was never an easy time during that game, and you're always just under pressure. There's always someone pulling at you, and just the pace of it generally. Then we played Mary's, we played Clan in the Clan game. I could barely breathe by the end of it, to be honest. So it was just brilliant, though. It's what we live for, it's what we train for, that intensity. And in fairness, we did have some friendlies against intermediate teams in the build-up to the run of games there before St. Mary's. So that definitely, got me up to speed pretty quickly. We played some great teams. So the management team as well. Like at training, you see, there's such competition for places. There's a fierce drive, fierce determination to win in the camp, stemming from the coaches. So every training is like a championship game almost. So I guess that helps a lot as well. But definitely the standard is so high, and it's just amazing to be part of it, and to come out the other side as winners is phenomenal, really, to be honest.
Yeah, and like you mentioned something there, it's one of the characteristics of this Kilmacbea team, not just this year, but over the past number of years when they have been successful. There's a real bond. You can see that. The day you won that first junior A one in Kilmacbea, incidentally, the outpouring of emotion immediately after the game. It's rare that you'd see that much of it at a junior A game. You would see celebration and excitement, but it meant so much to Kilmacbea, not just the players. But the bond between the players and the local community, for somebody who's come back into it, and somebody we'll talk about it shortly, who's commuting up and down from Galway, that's your dedication levels. But the bond between what it means to the players and what it means to just a very small rural area by country Ireland standards, you were obviously reintroduced to that. It's not something you can taste or understand when you're over in London or up in Galway. But when you're there in Lepp, when you're there on that pitch, when you're there training, when you're walking through the village, whatever, do you sense it? And when you do sense it, how much of a surprise was it to you?
I think there was a moment there where we beat Cora on Tuesday night, and I was driving through the village then on Wednesday or Thursday, and to see all the flags and everything, it really just kind of, it wasn't something that I was expecting. And it was obviously my first time seeing it and being around, because I actually didn't make the other two finals that we'd won. So yeah, to see that, it was kind of a kind of catch yourself moment, that how much this means to everyone. And then when you're playing on the sideline, you see all the fans, and that, like just giving so much to the club, and to play for them and to give it, win it for them is amazing. Like, but yeah, there's a huge bond between us all, really. And I think that it was the years of struggling to make it, the years of, being knocked out in the first, second round. The success is fine. And like you said, it was our third title in 4 years or whatever it was. But that wasn't the case previously, I mean, that, it was an awful long time coming. And I think that sometimes, the struggles like that bonds everyone and brings everyone together, I guess. And then we're able to share then in the excitement of the win then, I guess. But yeah, it was crazy. Like the support, all the people that have been texting me since the game as well. There's just, like a great bond around the village. And I think that, the whole COVID thing, I think we might touch on it later, but I was disappointed when the decision was made to put games behind closed doors, because it's these rural communities that will end up losing out, and for many people, the weekly league game or championship game is their kind of social outing. So, and fair play to the West Cork board to allow, to get all the fans there yesterday safely and to allow numbers in. But, it was just great, and to see all the fans there, and the whole village was just rallying around us the last couple of days. So it definitely was a kind of catch me moment, definitely.
The other thing about Kilmacbea, because I know a good few people living there and from there, it's one of the best places to go for a celebration. I'd imagine you concur with that, would you?
Well, we were very, very good. No, I must say, last night, Ger.
Really?
There was nothing like what was going on up in Blackrock now. But no, we came back. We celebrated for sure. We had our own cordoned off area in the pub, so it was all very very above board. But like, look, I mean, we were kind of heavy favourites coming into it and stuff, and it is for some of the lads their third. So it was a big night and great celebrations. But we know that our job really is only half done with the West Cork, and our target is always and always has been since the beginning of the year twofold. One was to regain the West Cork Championship, and then to kick on into the county, where I guess we kind of haven't fulfilled our promise, I guess, so far.
Yeah, and there's the high bar that you set yourselves in Kilmacbea. It's one of the reasons I think you keep coming back to win the West Cork. It's not that you take it for granted, you take it very, very seriously. But that the bar is, we've got to do this first, and then we've got to go on and do what we've always wanted to do, which is to go beyond the junior grade and move up the ladder. You've been close over the past couple of years, but unfortunately, and it brings us to the COVID question, we're recording this on the day now that the government have announced, or the GA have announced today, that there will be no more club action until further notice, basically. Later tonight, we'll find out just exactly what level the country is going to over the next, and who knows what happens over the next couple of weeks. So from your point of view, as a player in the Kilmacbea team, you don't know when you're playing again next. So what do you do now, or what is the plan now? Because it could be the new year, it could be just before Christmas, or it could be even later. But you are champions. There still is a Munster to contend and to try and move, or not a Munster, but a Cork County to move up that grade, to get into the next grade. Is there a plan at the moment, or are you just playing it by ear?
Well, from a personal level, I kind of got a knock yesterday, so I probably would have been out for a week or 10 days anyway. So it kind of works out for me that I have a week or two off. But there hasn't really been any discussions yet, amongst the team or whatever. We're going to wait for the what they say later on and what that means, etc. I guess, look, without games, yes, that's a bit of a bummer, obviously, but we can still train, as far as I'm aware, in positive 15 or whatever it is. So, I mean, we're not going to let our guard down, because I think that the GA, as quickly as they closed off all GA, they could reopen it at any stage as well over the next couple of weeks. And, there'll probably be a big rush then to play off the county. You probably will be playing the 3 or 4 games within a time span of a month, obviously. So you just got to keep fit. You got to keep training, keep doing your runs, and be ready for, at the drop of a hat, effectively, you could be playing at any stage. So it is a bit unnerving, I guess. Throughout the whole championship, we were battling against our opposition, but we were also battling against COVID and whether or not the games will be going ahead and stuff. And mentally, that just does take its toll. So it's been a tough championship from that perspective. So definitely, to get the week or two off, is actually kind of a blessing in disguise, I guess, just to rest the bodies and stuff. But like I said, we're going to keep on training. We're going to keep on doing our runs, keep going to the gym, keep fit, to be ready to play whenever we need to. I think as well, we're playing the winners of Charleville Buttervent, and I don't think that game has been played yet. So whenever it does restart, we will, I guess, have a little bit of a lead time into it, maybe a week or two, to let that game play off. So that might play to our advantage as well.
And just finally, I was just going to ask you, because somebody who's travelling up and down from Galway for the sake of his hometown team, which is commendable in itself, what is the dressing room dynamic like? And I ask that tongue-in-cheek, because I know there's a few characters in there that you might want to mention or not mention. Some people that are very vocal a lot of the time, until you put a microphone in front of them, all of a sudden things are different. That's been my experience, and I mean that in the nicest possible sense. But it's always struck me as well, whatever about Kilmacabea's skill levels, and they're quite high, and they're obviously a very, very solid squad, not just reliant on 1 or 2 players. It's always 6 or 7 guys that stand up, and there's different guys that stand up. But inside in the dressing room and at training, for instance, you've come back in. Have you gotten any grief that you've got your first medal? What are the dynamics like? Are there talkers, and are there people who like to put you in your place in the nicest possible sense? Because I get from Kilmacbea that without that bond, that without that camaraderie, without that, taking things seriously when you have to, but not too seriously when they don't need to, has helped enormously over the last couple of years, and especially this year.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting you say about the dressing room dynamic. Obviously, there hasn't been any dressing rooms open for the last couple of months. So I get it has made it a little bit more difficult to get a real kind of bond and, bring everyone together. But no, I mean, like, everyone is just there with the same goal. I mean, it is brilliant to come back and just be welcomed back. Like, look, I do get a lot of grief. I wear a lot of rugby gear to training just because that's the only gear I have because from time in London. But so I'd be ripped a bit about that. But like, since I've come back, I've been made feel like you're one of the team, like you're almost never away. I'm sure some of the lads were barely even playing football when I left. So there's a great kind of age range there as well, great experience. Along with the youth then of the Gores, the Richies, the people like that. So Ian Jennings, etc. So like for me, just being able to come back down and almost be treated as if you were never away, shows the strength of the characters and how great a club this is and how great the people involved with it is. So and then you have then the COVID officers, the people running the stuff behind the scenes. We were talking about the community earlier. I mean, like, that's not an easy job to be chasing lads for names and sanitizing hands and sanitizing balls, etc. And all the lads have just done that with with no complaints whatsoever. And we had a bit of a COVID scare. There was talks about putting off the Cora game, but because our COVID officers had tracked everything, etc., we were able to play that game and then play the final on Sunday, which, if the final wasn't played on Sunday, then who knows when it would have been played. But like for me, coming up and down, it was almost as if I was never away, really. So the lads were great, to be honest. And like you said, you touched on it there, just it's 1 to 17, 18. There are no we're not an individual team. And like, I didn't play my best game against Cora, but then people like Colin McCarthy then just stood up and effectively kind of won the game for us with his freeze. So it's just a great group of lads. The talent there is unbelievable, and it's just a pleasure to be part of, really, to be honest.
Well, Rory, we're delighted for you. We're delighted that you're back and part of it, to enjoy not just the Junior A but Junior C the year before as well. It's been a terrific year for Kilmacbea. Just in time, I think, is the headline, because as you said, it'd be gone another week. You may not have had an opportunity to taste that success, but if anyone deserves it for the effort that he's put in and coming back into the fold and making such an impact, it is you. Thank you so much for your time here on the Southern Star podcast, and we hope to talk to you again real soon.
Thanks a million, Ger.
Access Credit Union has always been at the heart of our community through good and bad times. We want to continue to play our part in helping our community through the COVID-19 crisis. As businesses reopen, we encourage our community to work together by staying local, borrowing locally, and spending locally. Access Credit Union is here to help.
Now, before we wrap things up this week, we're going to chat soccer. And since we have the host of the West Cork League podcast on, we're going to chat West Cork League. Ger, what's the outlook for the West Cork League junior and schoolboy clubs following the latest government restrictions?
It ain't good, Jack. I suppose it's the easiest thing to say. Thankfully, we have a bumper soccer edition in this week's Southern Star coming out on Thursday. The first weekend of the new season, only less than a month after the old season finished in West Cork, occurred last weekend, and thankfully all bar 2 of the games were completed. On the schoolboys front, we were coming towards the end of a reduced season because they were trying to get everything finished before the end of the year to start again the following March. So on Monday, very late Monday night, the West Cork Schoolboys League issued a statement from the FAI stating that, look, for the next 3 weeks, everything is cessation of all scheduled and friendly fixtures. So you can't just go out and organise a friendly at schoolboys level midweek or anything like that, which coaches might like to do to keep the kids active. But unfortunately, that's not allowed to happen. And then just on on Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, through the West Cork League's John Buckley, it was announced also, which we were expecting. It followed on from the FAI directive that all junior soccer in West Cork and probably throughout the country, to be quite honest with you, in the coming days, will have to stop for the next 3 weeks while we're in the level 3 lockdown. So hugely disappointing, having just restarted, having just got going again. As I know yourself with Baltimore, everybody was just looking forward to getting going. The GA season was nearly over, so I'd imagine most teams were pretty strong at the start of the season, which is a rarity, which made it even better. But can we just spare a quick thought for a newly reformed club, Barr United, down in Castletown, Barr? They haven't played actively since I think around 1997. They were due to play their first championship game last weekend, but the addition of a new team out to be meant a rejigging, and it's not out to be's fault, a rejigging of the fixtures. So they didn't play last weekend, and now they're not going to play this week or for another month. They're chomping at the bit, because I've been speaking to them, to get back out in that pitch. But look, there's good news stories. There's an increased championship number of clubs. Cork McSherry are a team with a long and storied history in West Cork. They're back. Ulta, another club on the up. They've got 2 teams now, and at the top tier in the Premier. I was lucky enough to enjoy a cracking game between Clonakilty Soccer Club and Spartak Moscow, newly promoted, finished 2-2. Match report in this week's Southern Star. And a lot of good football, a lot of goals, just like the Premier League across in England as well. A lot of goals flying in. So unfortunately, just as we got going again, we have to stop.
I know, hugely disappointing. Like, just speaking from a player's perspective, we were back. The WhatsApp group was flying. We had a friendly against Skibbereen 2 weeks ago. It finished 2-2, but there was a great buzz in the club. There was new signings. Everyone was mad for it. We were going, we're getting promoted this year, definitely. So there was and we were unfortunately one of the clubs who didn't get to play last weekend for the same reasons that you've outlined. So disappointing start to the season for everyone, but hopefully in 3 weeks' time we'll all be smiling and we'll be back out in the field. And Ger just mentioned something there, that there is going to be a bit of a soccer special in this week's Southern Star, and that will be in shops on Thursday. And if you can't make it to the shops, don't forget you can get the Southern Star online. Just click on to www.southernstar.ie/e-paper and you can read the Southern Star for less than €2 per week. And now briefly, Ger, before we wrap up, Ireland take on Slovakia in Bratislava on Thursday in a playoff semi-final for the delayed European Championships, which are due to take place next summer. I wouldn't be booking my flights just yet. Conor Hourihane was an unused sub in Aston Villa's 7-2 win over Liverpool on Sunday. But would you expect the banded man to start on Thursday evening? He's made a good start to the season, played in 2 of Villa's opening 3 wins, including scoring and assisting on the opening day against Fulham. So are we likely to see him lining out?
I would certainly hope so, Jack. And I think Stephen Kenny's a fan. I think that was pretty obvious from day one. There's an injury to Harry Arter. There's a couple of question marks over some of the midfielders. So I think of what's available to Kenny and who's flown out, I think Horan is probably, I would say he's a lock to start, because you just don't know. Maybe Kenny will change the formation and look to go counter-attacking. But for his experience and for his dead ball ability, I think that's the key thing here. Set pieces, where we're probably is our best chance of a goal in most internationals, unfortunately, right now. I think Hourihane should play. He'll also want to impress his Aston Villa manager and management team with the arrival of Barkley from Everton last week, who played against Liverpool. So there's maybe a little bit of pressure on him, and I think that's a good thing for Ireland, because usually when he's under a little bit of pressure, Conor Hourihane tends to deliver. And I think, of considering the type of opposition that we're playing, and because it's a semi-final, it's an opportunity to reach a final and possibly another route to the European Championships. I think Ireland need to put out their strongest team here. And I think Kenny, considering we're away from home, considering we probably have to keep things tight for as long as we can in the first half, and set pieces, free kicks, corners are going to be where we will threaten, with the likes of Duffy pushing up from the back, and probably John Egan as well if he's fit and available. No better man in the Premier League right now to deliver a free kick or a corner than Conor Hourihane, and that's not belittling his skills, but I think just from set pieces, and we've seen it already, as you said, he's had a decent start to the Premier League season, which was been a bit disjointed for Villa, but is picking up now. I think definitely, I'd certainly pick him and start him, and I think Kenny will, because I think Kenny is a fan of his. Yeah,
I think the key point you make there is the set pieces, and I don't think it's belittling them at all. It's Ireland's best chance to score, and it has been for 2 or 3 or even 4 years, maybe in 12-18 months when Stephen Kenny's had his chance to put his stamp on the team. We won't be so reliant on set pieces, but while we are, Hourihane is the best man for the job, especially with Robbie Brady not really playing so far this season. So yeah, hopefully Hourihane will start. Hopefully Ireland will march on to the playoff final, and hopefully we'll all be booking flights all around Europe next year, and all the pandemic will be forgotten, and all of this will be history. But anyway, that's all we have time for this week. Ger, thanks a million for doing this with us in Kieran's absence. And thanks to everyone else for listening to the Star Sport podcast. We'll be back at the same time next week. If you enjoy these shows, please make sure to rate, review and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Slán go fóill.